let's get to it then. Charlie! The man actually did it. MoistCr1TiKaL, aka the Moist Man, aka Penguin Zero, Penguin Zo? He did it. He fulfilled the prophecy. If you know, you know. Moist Man and Sneako had a debate where the basic tenets of the debate was Sneako thinks that being trans is bad and that pedophilia is good. And Charlie thinks that being trans is okay and being a pedophile is bad. You know, really high level ideas being bandied back and forth. After that debate, Charlie stepped back for a little while from his podcast, and that was misread online as Charlie stepping back from the drama of his engagement with Sneako, which I never really thought was true, because the Moist Man has dealt with much worse public blowback than a pedophile said that you're pro-trans, which is bad. You know, I'm pretty sure he has a little bit more robust of a... He's a bit better built. Anyway, let's take a look. Let's watch.
Heavens to Betsy, what a week, huh, sports fans? Holy Toledo. Yeah, so MoistCr1TiKaL's in a big oopsie-poopsie situation here. It reminds me of the time in Moonfall when KC Houseman sacrifices himself and dies of cringe to become the moon.
Yeah, we're watching this video, by the way, so there's a very specific intersection of people who enjoy politics and enjoy this. This is meaningful to me because I know at least one thing in this video. One single thing. I don't know how long it's going to take for him to get to it, though, and it's a 25-minute video.
Yeah, so, being serious now, since this has become such a big issue, I've been in a lot of drama recently. I'm in hot water, and I'm biting on the fart bubbles that pop up in the bathtub here. It is a lot. So let's start with the most recent one today. My retirement. I didn't know I was retiring. That's news to me. I'm as shocked as all of you are. I hang up the jersey, you can put it in the rafters, and it had 50,000 likes, so I know it was true, and the collab alive. I wasn't going to record it, to which I said I can if he wants me to, but I was also down to just talking is a very different thing to me. So I didn't even know that's what this was. So obviously I was unprepared for a debate. So I entered into the Thunderdome and we started talking. I made it clear that I found his statements on the age of consent and children marrying adults being hideous, absolutely revolting. And then he started arguing about, well, what is a child? We must define a child, you know. It's not actually being under 18. It's all a bunch of hooey. And I really think if you have to start arguing about, well, what technically is a child? You're already way too far gone. Like, that is so weird. And in no uncertain terms, multiple times throughout the debate, Sneako says that he is okay with people that are aged 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 marrying adults that are 18 or older.
There are nothing globally.
The reason why I wanted to watch this is because I don't always agree with the way the Moist Man handles certain situations, mostly to the extent that he's not like super locked in on lefty, but he's not a communist is what I'm saying. MoistCr1TiKaL is not the reincarnation of Marx. And for this, he, as will we all, burn. But nonetheless, I think that for the most part, every indication that I've gotten from him, like every time I've seen him kind of bubble up into the political engagement, he seems to me like a good guy. Not even necessarily because he's liberal leaning, but because he seems to be a little bit less interested in the kind of performative blood sports drama mongering that most people in his position would enjoy getting into. Keep in mind, drama YouTube is monstrously bad. Did you call him a fascist a few weeks ago? No? Ben, wait, chat, did I call MoistCr1TiKaL a fascist a few weeks ago? I call a lot of people a fascist, but I don't think that would be warranted in this case at all. Asmongold? You might be thinking of Asmongold, Benjamin. Though in Asmon's case, he's so stupid. I think I might have said that he just reiterates fascist political talking points without knowing why. Yeah, I don't know. How can you confuse the two? Maybe Benjamin's not a capital G gamer. I don't know. It's fine. It's fine. Moist has always seemed like a good guy to me. I don't know. It's just nice to see pushback on this coming from a larger platform. Again, like the position that Charlie is pushing back against here is pro-pedophilia. And I do appreciate Sneako in a respect. I like the fact that Sneako has very publicly linked being pro-pedophilia and anti-trans. I have noticed a link between these things as well in my time on Twitter, it is genuinely quite nice that he's like so clearly cementing it, that it's like these are synchronous positions in a lot of ways. It's I don't know, it's politically convenient if nothing else. And it's nice to see some normie pushback. I genuinely think that this is part of the "why are you so weird" archetype. You know what I mean? That mindset. Like, what the fuck are we doing, dude? I remember back in like 2016, there was a guy called MoistCr1TiKaL who was so I'm gonna hit you guys with the spoilers on this one. He claimed to not be a pedophile. He was arguing extensively in favor of pedophilia. And then later he got arrested for being a pedophile. Crazy, I know. In his time as a like sensational debate lord in favor of his particular paraphilia, he debated a bunch of people. He also palled around with a lot of people on the right, like Sargon of Akkad in particular. They really got along. I guess the difference there compared to here is that, for one, MoistCr1TiKaL was never anywhere near as popular as Sneako because they hadn't invented the W streamer yet. That cultural intersection of what if we all watched a dumb who we knew was a dumb and we celebrated them being a dumb, but we actually kind of like them even though we think they're stupid. There's like a kind of locale that didn't exist back then to the same extent that it exists today. Sneako has a lot more influence than MoistCr1TiKaL ever did. And what's more, Sneako is actively and deliberately political in ways that MoistCr1TiKaL didn't attempt to be. Basically what I'm getting at here is that as time goes on and the mask slips further and further, more and more arguing against the right is literally just going to be them interspersing arguments against queer people with arguments in favor of pedophilia. It's been getting louder and louder with time, and it's going to happen more and more and more. They can't help themselves. In Sneako's case in particular, a lot of this has to do with the demographic of his fan base, a lot of whom are literal children. And there's like an intersection here, both in that children are really, really, really stupid, and they also don't have the same innate understanding of how bad the pro-pedophilia rhetoric is, because like they're kids, so they're approaching it from an entirely different perspective. There's 14-year-old boys who are thinking like, yeah man, my homeroom teacher's so hot, and like they don't even, like, we're not dealing with a group of people. What I'm saying is that someone call the parents, okay? Someone restrict the screen time. If you see your kid on the living room computer and you see them on kick.com, it is time to put in place the parental restrictions, okay? That's all I'm saying. All right? Best case scenario to that, down that path, is they become a gambling addict. That's the best case scenario. You get my point.
Let's just talk globally. Like, do you think it is okay for, I'm not talking about just you specifically anymore, anyone. Do you think it's okay for anyone in their 20s, an adult, to marry a 15 or 16-year-old?
A 21-year-old, if there was a marriage where the father consented and the daughter consented, and it was both good on both families and they wanted to do it, why am I going to get involved? Why should we get the government involved?
Even get back a little bit. Do you think there's not a problem with a child being with an adult?
Okay.
He a fan.
We haven't even agreed upon what a child.
Wait, am I allowed to say that because Sneako is black? Am I allowed to say? Can I not say that? I don't know. He I was about to think I can't say fan. Okay, I was about to think, like, okay, he a freaky ass guy then, and I got midway through running that one out the production line before stopping myself. All right, let's just.
Adult is. You keep saying that it's 18.
Under 18.
That's
child.
And I'm telling you, that's not even the definition of the word.
What is the number? It needs to be a number, or else you can do the same thing.
I just told you there's not a number.
But do you see why that's a problem?
No.
If there's no defined. So why can't a 12-year-old marry an 18-year-old?
Because most 12-year-olds haven't gone through puberty yet. And most 12-year-olds...
What if as you just said, it changes?
I started puberty at 8. Sneako's been pushing the whole, once you hit puberty, you're mature line. So that's a starting point that varies pretty, you know, that like, yeah.
What if a 12-year-old went through puberty early, the parents consent, the 18-year-old and the parents consent? Can they do it?
Most likely that's not going to happen. You know why? Because Islamically, if
we're not talking most likely, just say it.
If the families have consented, the kid is mature, the kid is ready, why should I stop
at 12 years old.
Oh, yeah, there you go. So yeah, 12. Or younger, by the way. Or younger. What the fuck? He's a Muslim? No, he's doing the Andrew Tate thing where he pretends to be Muslim. Andrew Tate announced that he had converted and then took a picture of himself in a private jet drinking whiskey in like the same week. Okay, they're not actually Muslim. I don't want to get conspiratorial about this, but You know how the Saudis have invested a ton of money into cultural infiltration, not just in America, but around the world? There has been, it's like the UAE, Qatar, whatever. There's a lot of money coming out of dictatorial slave states that basically like their entire GDP is oil to try to culturally, to provide like cultural ambassadors. I'm not saying Sneeko takes his money directly from them. I don't think that's true. I'm just saying that there's like a pressure, you know, much in the same way that like, I don't know, having a bunch of gay people on social media means that there's a pressure for me to know what brat means, right? Like, it's not necessarily that I'm getting paid money by Charlie XCX. It's just that there's kind of like a, you know.
At 12 years old.
If the kid is physically mature, the parents consent, both parties are happy.
A 12-year-old being physically mature.
If that's the only line that actually makes sense.
Again, I don't think a 14-year-old can ever be physically mature.
Mm-hmm. Even though they literally can. Even though.
This, by the way, is the interview where a bunch of right-wing YouTubers clipped portions where they talked about trans kids and went with that to defend Sneeko. That none of them care about pedophilia. Basically, every right-wing drama YouTuber will defend Sneeko. Find me ones who won't. They all will defend. They don't care about pedophilia. They are pro-pedophilia. If they were anti-pedophilia, they would lose a significant number of their connections and fan base.
Even though puberty actually defines that, it's fine.
I don't believe so. I was 14 once. I actually had a mustache when I was 14. Would you have looked at me and said I was physically mature enough to get married?
If you were physically mature, if you were mature, yes, I would. Okay.
Really?
If you're
I was 14.
Yeah. If you were 14 and you were ready to go and you met another 14-year-old, yes, I would.
No. We're talking adults. You keep going back to
that. That is adult.
I met.
I told you my definition. I told you the definition. The definition. Okay. If you went through puberty, you're an adult. That's the definition of adult. So yes, if you're an adult and you got a mustache, you're ready to get married, fine. Okay.
Unironically, saying a 14-year-old adult, I think, would make most sensible people want to puke. There's so many instances of this, and a lot of the conversation was spent with him talking about like overseas age of consent, like talking about.
Ugh. Can you believe how normalized this shit has become, man? It's genuinely crazy. Not sure if Charlie's mature now. Look, okay, Charlie's a capital G gamer. You know, we are as we are. Charlie has always come across to me as, despite his enormous influence and power, a relatively normal guy. Can we agree on that? Like, obviously he's a goofy goober, sure. But in terms of like the way he reacts to stuff and the way he engages with questions and subjects like this, he doesn't come across as like a progressive partisan or somebody who's coming at this with a particular political agenda. It really just comes across to me as like a pedophile trying to explain to Charlie how pedophiles good at. Charlie's just sitting there like, what the what the man?
How Japan's age of consent was 13 for the longest time, this and that. But
not actually true, by the way.
The whole thing was like pulling teeth, and it was painful. And I think it's extremely alarming perspective to have. Unironically, calling a 14-year-old and 12-year-old mature enough for a marriage, those are middle schoolers. Like, holy shit. I think that is extremely concerning to be advocating for something like that. Like, would Sneeko be okay if his best friend ended up marrying a 14-year-old? He certainly shouldn't be. No one should be
He probably would be
okay with something like that. Like, that's terrible. That is actually terrible. But now, since I wasn't like holding him to this topic or making sure it stayed on the topic I thought we were talking about, it went all over the place with a ton of different things. But the big one, and this is what most people have focused on.
Sneeko is too to realize how it is. No, don't fall into that trap. This is just the right-wing movement. The right-wing movement, the fascist movement, it comes at you in 1,000 different ways. This is why people say fascism is idiosyncratic. That ideologically, fascism can be advocated for or pushed or advanced in 1,000,000 different ways. There are 1,000 directions you can come at it from. Progressives, leftists, tend to push their line in relatively consistent and predictable ways. Fascists don't, because fascists don't believe in truth. Fascists don't believe in consistency. They don't believe in empiricism. They have general things that they want, and they'll push for it any way they can. They will call you a pedophile for believing that it's okay for a 35-year-old Hollywood actor to transition, and then they will argue in favor of child marriage. It's not a contradiction to them, because the real position they have is that trans people are degenerate. That's the actual position that they have. Did you see that Dr. Disrespect is going on the alt-right grift to save his career? He already did. He did that years before the pedophile thing, but obviously he was. Like, the pedophile, literally, pedophile right-wing grift, 1-to-1. Find me an exception. Literally, In a way, genuinely, I do think that it's almost beneficial to the left that they're running this gamut for a few reasons. First of all, this is a strategy that appeals overwhelmingly to the kinds of people who are not very effective political advocates. Like, you might be able to get 30,000 or 50,000 or 100,000 people in a live stream typing W over and over again because you said that child marriage is okay. But a lot of those people are children, and even the ones that aren't are, let's just say, I don't know, socially dubious, not exactly well respected in their social circles. Like, they're not pillars of the community. They're losers. They're not going to go out there and like be effective advocates for your position. You understand? No? Ah, well, that's life. That's life. I really do think that in the long arc of history, the more openly pro-pedophilia the right gets, the easier it is to attack them, obviously. I know it's crazy to hear stuff like this normalized, but I genuinely do think it makes them vulnerable targets. I just think the left needs to capitalize on this more, like much more aggressively, like way, 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 way more aggressively, you know? The song of the summer is Kendrick calling Drake a pedophile. Okay, that's all I'm saying.
Which was my response to his question about kids transitioning. And the way he would pose that question would be by asking if I thought it was okay if kids who want to switch their gender go to the doctor and get their dick cut off. Is it okay if a 9-year-old goes to a doctor and gets their cock cut off right then and there? And when posed with that question, I replied with yes. And I've talked about this on stream many, many times now, and I'll talk about it again here. I thought he was talking in hyperbole. I thought he was just exaggerating, being over the top, talking about the entire subject of transitioning. I had no idea that any living, breathing human being actually thought that that's how transitioning works, where you just go into a doctor saying, I feel like switching genders, and they lay you down on the operating table and just snip your whole meat off. I didn't know that that's what he actually believed. I didn't know he was speaking literally. I thought he was just referring...
He's so nice. He's so nice, isn't he, folks? He's so nice.
To the entire process of transitioning and just using this over-the-top statement to encapsulate all of it. Because you literally cannot get that surgery unless you are 18. Like, you actually have to go out of your way to be that stupid on the topic than you would just spending a couple of seconds looking it up. There are very rare cases where someone under 18 has had that surgery performed. That's not common. So I really didn't think that someone could be so dumb on the topic. I thought he was just speaking in hyperbole, which is my mistake. I should have been more clear instead of making an assumption that he was talking about something nuanced in an over-the-top way. I haven't hid this take, and it's not a new take from me. I've talked about this a couple times throughout the years on stream. I have no complaints if a kid gets interested in transitioning and starts talking to their family about it. So their parents start talking to doctors, the kid starts...
I know, like, people like to get in the weeds on this, but genuinely, the number of minor gender affirming care surgical procedures that are done in the United States are vanishingly low. Like, genuinely, we're getting down into like hundreds of people a year in a country with 1/3 of a billion people in it. What's more, here, I just Googled this real quick just so we can, like, you know, get out the numbers, okay? According to the American Society of Plastic Surgeons, more than 76,000 cosmetic surgical procedures, this isn't trans stuff, this is just plastic surgery, were performed on teens aged 13 to 19 in 2011, a single year, accounting for 5% of all cosmetic surgical procedures performed in the US that year. Breast augmentation and breast reduction in adolescent boys were among the top 5 procedures performed on teens. This is 13 to 19, you know, I'm not Google fooing that well today, you know. I don't know how many of these were done at 18 or 19. The broader point stands. I literally knew a girl who had breast reduction surgery in high school because, honest to God, her back probably hurt. Poor girl. It's just like, none of this care is sincere. And you don't have to, from a rhetorical perspective, you don't have to pretend to care about their disingenuous bad faith arguments when they are literally pro-pedophilia. You don't have to. You don't have to be on the like, well, yeah, let's engage in like a super specific policy discussion on the nebulous differences between these different types of procedures and how many were done this year and can you provide this data, when the person is just openly advocating for child marriage. You don't have to. You're not obligated to. Nor should you, like, it's not effective to. They want to distract from their position.
talking to doctors and therapists and all of this, because the process of transitioning is one that takes place over the course of many years. It's not something that just happens like that. And I'm also not afraid to admit that I am not the most educated when it comes to transitioning. I am not someone that has a ton of knowledge about the subject to be speaking on it in a really in-depth manner. But even I know these very surface level things that everyone has easy access to understand. It is a long process, and I have no problems at all if a kid gets interested in that process and starts going through that process with proper care.
Based. This is the normal position, by the way. The normal human, regular, like, apolitical position is, oh, medical procedures? Well, I don't know. I guess, like, you know, as long as it's done responsibly and the doctors are involved, and, you know, I trust the medical organizations to have a, you know, good position on this, unless a bunch of evidence is provided otherwise, which there hasn't been. That's it. That's the normal position.
And then when they reach the age where they can consider that surgery and decide they want to do it, then that's all power to them. That's entirely up to them. They have reached that age. They can now do that surgery if they want to. That is not a surgery that's being offered to like a 9-year-old who just says, I feel like changing genders today. It's just not how it works. And I didn't think that that's what was actually being discussed because it's so silly. Now, I'm sure there's some really fringe cases you can point to where that kind of thing did happen, but it's not common. Thus, I didn't think that's what was being referred to in the conversation. And it is...
Also, it's the same as how Republicans will say, we need a total abortion ban because we think there are some instances of abortions happening at 9 months, right? So if the right-wingers' position really was you shouldn't be able to get bottom surgery at 7 years old, then why are all the laws you're passing preventing gender-affirming care altogether? Like, if that was actually the thing that you were outraged by, then why is it that all the policy positions and your arguments broadly are holistically against it, rather than the tiny, like, small examples that you think are bad, that you then blow out of proportion? Why do you need to point to those? Like, if my position morally is that I think rape is bad, I wouldn't need to point to, like, the worst examples of rape imaginable and then go like, yeah, those are the things that I think are really bad, and that's why da-da-da-da-da, and then, like, and then not talk about, like, the broader issue. I can holistically talk about the issue with, like, a lack of consent or sexual assault or whatever. I don't need to disingenuously frame it around what I perceive to be the worst examples in that case.
Again, my mistake for not recognizing that at that moment it was being spoken about literally. So all that shit that people keep dogpiling and spouting about me about how I want all kids to go out there and get their genitals chopped off is just up. It's so ridiculous. I recognize I did a horrible job of arguing in this debate, which isn't surprising considering I don't debate. This is not something that's in my skill set, which of course led to some embarrassingly dog shit arguments. Like the one I've seen people reference a couple times is when I briefly mentioned sports in this topic. It was a stupid point to try and make. I was getting hit by like some rebound psychic damage listening to some of the drivel brain rot that Sneeko was spouting about the age of consent. And I don't know why I thought this was like an argument to try and make, but I brought up sports.
The age of debate is over, man. The age of debate is so over. When you can be Charlie, you like the guy with the debate rhetoric prep can be like, hello, I am here to debate these positions. I will own you on these positions. First up, child marriage. Pro or against? I'm pro. And then Charlie's like, man, I don't know. I think that's bad. And then the audience is like, whoa, that's not a properly structured retort to the argument posed by Sneeko. It's so over, man. Never before, like, this is the furthest debate culture has ever been from adjacency to the truth.
In this subject, and I was going to try and elaborate on it, but didn't at all. What I was going to try and say is that when a kid gets interested in a sport, they'll talk to their parents about it, they'll research the sport, and, you know, go through the process of learning about it. And when it comes to transitioning, it's still a process where you talk to your family about it, you learn about it. Like, it wasn't a point where I was trying to say, well, changing genders is a lot like picking between baseball and soccer. Like, it's not what I was trying to get at, but because I didn't elaborate on it, and it really wasn't a good argument to try and make in the first place, that's one people have harped on a lot. And I get it. Like I said, I am not a debater. Like, I didn't go in here expecting a debate. So I had nothing prepared here for this inundation of outrageous questions and tangents. Like, there was a point where Sneeko was trying to get me to say white power. Like, the whole thing was a mess. It was, without a doubt, probably the worst debate that video has ever been cursed with. And I really regret not doing a better job here. It's not something I should have even done in the first place. I just have a tendency to really hope for the best out of people, and I was really hoping that...
He isn't white. Sneeko? It doesn't matter.
I and most people were wrong about Sneeko's perspective on the age of consent. However, unfortunately, it doesn't appear to be the case. He was very adamant about this position, and I did a terrible job in arguing with him, and I did a terrible job of articulating my beliefs. I am supportive of the LGBTQ+, and I have been, and that's not something I've been shy about. I just wish I did a better job of expressing that. To be open and honest here, and I've talked about this a lot, I've always treated my channel kind of like a diary for myself, which is why I just talk about so much different nonsense and so many things that I know a lot of people don't give a fuck about, but some of it's fun for me to talk about, or some of it's just things I care about. So being totally honest, I used to treat the internet as an escape from my dog shit real life. Truly unhappy, really hated most of everything about myself, and the internet was my escape from it. But now it's really become that real life is the escapism for me now. Like, I love posting and creating things, but I don't like interacting with the internet around me anymore. And it's something that I started to realize a couple months ago. And
the internet, in addition to like the bot rot, like the death of the internet, dead internet theory or whatever, it is kind of crazy how literally every element of every subculture has been completely subsumed by a culture war in which one side is let people live their lives, be happy and be good to one another, and the other side is pedophile Nazism. Even the people who aren't pedophile Nazis are regurgitating points that are like downstream of pundits who are themselves fronting pedophile Nazi points, you know? It's like everything. I am saying this as a political streamer. I want the internet to be more apolitical. Everything has been taken by it. And a lot of this isn't our fault, by the way. I genuinely don't think the left is the one responsible for this, you know? There's a reason why you all grew up on shows and cartoons that today would be called woke if modern-day right-wing grifters like, say, The Quartering were around when they came out to say how they were woke. Avatar: The Last Airbender is the one that I bring up the most, the one where the opening episode is like XPs of an Inuit tribe arguing over the misogyny of a brother against their sister. Like, you telling me that's not gonna... Come on. Like, basically everything you've ever liked and loved that was made before this current era of culture war grift, where people online are paid money to lie to you about it, it would have been subsumed by that culture had those grifters existed back then. They're a rot that has infested the internet and the world at large. You can still go out in real life and just do stuff normally without the specter of pedophile Nazism haunting you, but the internet has been basically completely subsumed by it. And it's entirely the right's fault. Absolutely 100% the right's fault. Arthur on PBS would have been called woke. It was. The state of Alabama banned an episode of Arthur from airing there because it had a gay marriage in it. That was after gay marriage became the law of the land, by the way. They're evil, and they hate you.
I've talked about it on stream a little bit, how because I've covered so many like drama stories and everything, it's pretty much all that I ever get told about when I'm streaming, and it's become such a massive headache, and it's just constant negativity that I'm fully flooded with, like at all hours. Like, I am in like this human centipede of eating someone's ass while having my ass eaten with even more things that I'm being demanded.
Thank you, Charlie.
To like talk about, where everything just feels like a lose-lose, and it has been for like the last 6 or 8 months. I feel where if I talk about something, it's a problem. Even if something is cut and dry, as like Cody Ko having sex with a 17-year-old being bad, I caught a lot of shit for that too. I'm sure a lot of people probably didn't see that, but man,
genuinely, like, you can get in a lot of fire these days online, unless you're already in a very entrenched left-wing circle. If you're in like a kind of median normie internet circle, the positions Dr. Disrespect sexually messaging an underage girl, Cody Ko having sex with a 17-year-old while he was 25, and Sneeko defending marrying a 12-year-old as an adult, saying all those things are bad, that is a controversial position that will lead to literally tens or possibly hundreds of thousands of people attacking you for being woke or cringe or gay or whatever.
And the amount of emails I got and a lot of the things I was seeing, even something as cut and dry as that was an issue when I talked about it. And then if I don't talk about something, or if I don't talk about something fast enough in the time that some people think is appropriate, I'm then accused of covering up for something for an ulterior evil motive. So it just really feels like a rock and a hard place where, regardless, it's just going to be a massive flood of negativity. And a huge critique of me that I've always seen is Charlie's a fence sitter. He's just a fucking fence-sitting enlightened centrist cuck, this and that. And I've always said for the entire time I've been on the internet, I'm not special. I'm literally just a normal guy who got very lucky. I just sit here, joke about shit, talk about my opinion on things, and nothing else. I don't have a unique perspective on things. I don't have deep insight in...
All Epstein had to do was tweet, "I support Trump," before he died. He would have been uncritically loved and defended by the right. I got blowback for that tweet, but I was so right? Genuinely. If Epstein had tweeted that or somehow indicated it just a little bit before he'd been killed, he would still to this day be a beloved, uncritically beloved right-wing figure, and they would construct any conspiracy theory necessary to defend him. They don't care about anything else. It's just power.
To the vicissitudes of certain things, I am literally just a guy who yaps, has some fun, talks about shit, does some wacky stuff as well, and that's it. It's just not that deep. But because everything is so inflammatory and charged online, it's being perceived in the last, I'd say like the last 2 years, it's really popped off as me making deliberate attempts to appease both sides and play right down the middle to soak up as much as possible. Like it's all this like nefarious scheme where I'm doing this with my hands. And I just don't understand how it's become so incendiary, where that's apparently like a really bad thing now. My opinion is not special, and my opinion isn't one that's pandering to any sides or catering to anything. It's literally just whatever's up here. I sit down for like 30 to 45 minutes on like a topic or like a video that I'm joking around about.
All right. I think we got through the politically relevant part of it. God bless you, Charlie. Generally, like genuinely, our survival moving forward, like, and by our, I don't mean like lefties or queer people, I just mean like society, I guess, will rely on normal people's ability to make it clear what is going on. You know, I don't expect people to come across my stream or my channel and think like, oh, finally, you know, a regular, normal workaday guy offering his opinion on this wacky. I'm partisan and I'm proud, okay? And to an extent, we all are, right? Charlie's belief that we should listen to doctors and the medical consensus when it comes to trans children is a political belief. It's the normal belief. That's the normal belief people have about basically every single medical procedure in existence, but it is now made political because, you know, things can be normal and political. The belief that, you know, people are equal regardless of their race is to me a normal belief. It is certainly still a political one. Do you think this kind of drama will have a chilling effect on normies speaking up against the sneako types? I hope not, but they can be pretty fanatical online. So either way, God bless you, Charlie.